Over the weekend, the NAACP issued a travel advisory with a stark warning for anyone traveling to the state of Florida. The formal notice says, quote, Florida is openly hostile toward African Americans, people of color, and LGBTQ plus individuals. The advisory follows a flurry of bills signed by Governor Ron DeSantis in just the last few months. A new advanced placement course in African American studies was rejected outright. DeSantis defunded diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at public universities last week. He has also signed a bill outlawing gender transition care for minors, threatening to remove children from their homes if they receive gender-affirming care. Joining us now is Derrick Johnson, the president and CEO of the NAACP. Derrick, good to have you here. Why take this step?
It's important for the NAACP and other organizations to speak for individuals who are under attack. We have a large membership base in the state of Florida who feel besieged upon, and unfortunately the governor is using his platform to advance some of the most regressive racist policies in his attempt to become the president of the United States.
But Florida isn't alone in passing controversial legislation. Texas, for example, passed a law restricting critical race theory. There have been book bans there. In other states, several states have restricted voting rights. So why is the NAACP focusing specifically on Florida?
Because you have an individual who's leaning towards running for the presidency, and the nation must be aware and be cautious that if we decide to move in this direction, it would take us backwards to the Trump years or to the 1950s. And so this is for individuals across the country to be clearly aware of how harmful this individual would be if, in fact, he occupied the White House.
NBC News reached out to the governor's office. Haven't received any response yet. Have you been contacted by Florida officials? And prior to this, I'm wondering, did you try to address your concerns directly with the governor or other state leaders?
Well, our state NAACP leaders and other leaders of the Legislative Black Caucus in Florida and many officials in Florida, including corporations like this, have reached out, made appeals, but it's gone on deaf ears. He is appealing to the lowest common denominator of humanity. He's seeking to amplify the voice of a small minority of individuals who lack any integrity or morality in terms of their neighbors and other individuals. Using race and othering as a political platform is not a winning strategy. It's un-American, it's undemocratic, and it can be potentially harmful.
Ultimately, what do you hope to accomplish here?
Well, it's raising the consciousness of people across the country. It is making sure that if individuals have to go to Florida, they know to be cautious, but more importantly, to partner with groups on the ground. This problem is a result of an election. It would only be fixed as a result of an election. So we are preparing now for future elections, not only against Governor DeSantis, but other policymakers who hold this point of view. If we don't stop this trend now, we will not have an American that's recognizable 5 years from now.
Just next hour, the only black Republican in the Senate, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, is expected to announce his candidacy for the White House. What are your thoughts on his candidacy?
Well, I wish him the best. This is not a partisan issue. Our issue about racism and otherizing isn't a partisan issue. It's an issue around humanity. And if individuals who offer themselves up to run for office and they operate within the confines of just human dignity, then I think he has a right. I've talked to Tim Scott. I think he's a decent guy, and I hope he don't fall prey to this type of appeal to the lowest common denominator of humanity.
Derrick Johnson, I really appreciate the discussion today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.